Is that the famous Corey?
Yeah, hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Finally!
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Feels like
Yeah, I was trying to look
lifetime.
back. I was the first email may have been 2012 or something.
Corey Jones is the founder of Lucky Savannah, which is a boutique vacation rental management firm in historic Savannah, Georgia. And I've known Corey for a number of years as one of the earliest Inner Circle members. And I had the opportunity to pass through Savannah, and not only to stay at one of Corey's properties, but also to take some of his suggestions in things to do around town, and even to take him up on a little invitation out to Tybee Island, which is where he and his family spend quite some time. This interview is really neat because it stretches the notion of what a vacation rental manager is capable of doing. Corey is not only breeding this new kind of Southern hospitality with his properties in Savannah, but he's also recently purchased a motel out on Tybee Island, and he plans to use everything that he has learned about vacation rentals in revamping this kind of classic motel into something fresh and something that people demand, which at the end of the day, we know that there is a lot of different kinds of vacationers wanting a lot of different kinds of things. Corey is aiming to streamline the hospitality component, find that common denominator, and then to grow that business in very interesting ways. Here's me and Corey.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm the founder of VRMB and the host of the Vacation Rental Show. And this is season 4 of Unlocked, the Tiny Architects edition, in which we travel to meet the world's most innovative vacation rental professionals in their element and find out what makes them so special. This is Unlocked. My name's Matt Landau, y'all, and this is Unlocked. You like that Southern twist I added?
Hey, you are learning quickly.
Y'all.
That's right.
It's a simple way to just blend right in as a local.
Yes, exactly. Use some sweet tea and you're all set.
And introduce yourself, sir. Your name?
Yeah, I'm Corey Jones, Savannah local. Lucky Savannah Vacation Rentals is what we do for a living.
Lucky Savannah Vacation Rentals is how old now?
I think we're 6 or 7 years old.
Okay. And you were not a stranger to Savannah. You've got some roots here?
Grew up here. My wife was born and raised here. We've got a great friends and family network. So.
And Lucky Savannah represents how many properties approximately?
I think about 230.
230 properties. And how many of those are here within the historic area?
About 225 of those are all in the historic downtown area, so all within a 1 mile radius of each other.
Okay, amazing. And for those who are not fortunate to be sitting here with us, where are we sitting right now?
Yeah, we're sitting in arguably probably the one of the more premier properties in Savannah, Georgia.
Can I just say in maybe the world? It really is. It's remarkable.
You can say it. If I said it, it'd be boastful.
How do you even describe this to someone?
Yeah, it's something that would typically not be on the vacation rental market. It would be enjoyed by the owner, and that's it, or a primary full-time resident. So we're very fortunate to have it. It is really unique in this market.
It's what, 5 bedrooms?
5 bedrooms, 4 baths, professionally decorated by a well-known designer in Charleston.
Movie screen.
Yeah, full audio,
DJ
video,
lights. What are they?
smart home capabilities. Yeah, you can watch TV on the big projector and then hit another button if you want to go into dance party mode, and the strobe lights come down. And so,
I said to Jamila when we checked in that I felt like I was some sort of royalty sent to Savannah to broker some sort of treaty. That's what you feel like when you walk in, a diplomat.
Right. Well, that's what we're going for.
Diplomat with 2 T's. And this property is located on the edge of, well, it's kind of in the center. How do you, with regards
Yeah,
to
so the historic district's only a mile and a half square, but there are some distinctions between what would be more residential versus more commercial. So we're actually what I would define as more the hotel district of downtown. So we're in the commercial area. That's why you've got the nightlife, the shopping, all located within a block radius. We're only 2 blocks from River Street, which is the Savannah River. That's a main tourist attraction, and everyone makes sure to get down there. And so you normally don't have a property this large, and then obviously of this quality in this part of downtown.
And this is a great deal. For 5 bedrooms, $100 or $200 per bedroom is probably cheaper than the other hotels around.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, and again,
common space.
Yeah, the amount of square feet that you're getting in this property, you don't typically see downtown, just because it's a dense market, right? So space is at a premium.
And what is the deal with Savannah? I had never been here before. Really only briefly passed through. I didn't realize how gorgeous it is. I mean, these squares are right out of a movie set,
Right.
And they film movies here, right?
They film a lot of productions here, yes.
You said how many, like more films filmed in Georgia?
I think that's the stat. Last year there was more TV, film, etc. produced in Georgia than California.
Incredible. So it's so photogenic and it feels like you are in another world, but it also has managed to preserve this identity. Like the culture seems to be fairly strong. My first meal in Savannah, you said, you got to check out Mrs. Wilkes. And when we roll up to Mrs. Wilkes, there's a line, 11:15 a.m., there's a line around the corner of people waiting to eat at Miss Wilkes. And Miss Wilkes, for those who don't know it, is what?
Yeah, it's just a family-style restaurant. It's been here since 1950 or so. It was originally a boarding house restaurant for railroad workers in town, and then and they obviously just converted it into a restaurant. Nothing's changed.
Big tables.
Yeah, big. You sit down and it's literally just like Thanksgiving dinner. So you sit down at a table with up to 10 other guests. The plates are already out. There's about 14 or 15 different food items.
Yeah, it's way more advanced than my normal Thanksgiving dinner. I got to be honest.
And then you just pass the plates around, and there's a term, boarding house reach. So that's the one, it is okay to be a little bit impolite and reach across the table if you see something that you need.
And you start talking with other folks and have interesting conversations. And there were people lined up, and I'm guessing all day because they only serve lunch.
Only open from 11 to 2.
Only open from 11 to 2.
Yeah.
And so this was, to begin with, the most perfect introduction to Savannah for me, for my first meal. But you also have an interesting relationship with this restaurant.
I do, yes. I guess I married into it. So my wife was Mrs. Wilkes' great-granddaughter, and so her family still runs it today. My brother-in-law runs the day-to-day.
I think he was there when we were eating.
Yeah, so my mother-in-law is still there daily as well. It's been there a long time. Hopefully it's going to be there a lot longer. You could not open a restaurant in that style today. So we are very fortunate to have that relationship because the food is amazing. I don't know that I would be able to stand in line for 2 to 3 hours,
or really do anything after that lunch. You want to just fall asleep.
Yeah, I get asked a lot when I take people there. Man, you must eat here all the time. I say no because I wouldn't get anything done. So.
And maybe the cherry on that whole experience, in hindsight, was that you have kind of packaged your relationship with that restaurant in a very interesting way, in a way to share it with your guests. And that was when you said to me, but we'll hook you up, we'll take you in through the back door.
Right.
And this is something that you just came up with, these vouchers for guests?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have 3 of our rentals are upstairs.
Above the restaurant.
Above the restaurant. And so those guests have lunch included with their stay. And then, then we use the relationship if we want to surprise other guests that are staying in some of our other homes, if it's a special occasion, or if we have a service failure, right? It's a pretty good way to get back on the good side.
And it feels so freaking special. So we wander in the back alley. Like, people were out there smoking, who were smoking on their smoke break or whatever. And someone opened the door to the kitchen, walked through this little sort of alleyway in the kitchen, back into the actual kitchen, and then the door swung open, and we were in the actual living room, almost like we entered a play set. Right. And they sat us immediately. We didn't have to wait in line. That was a remarkable VIP experience.
I got something I gotta tell you, so get ready for another breakthrough. So let me show you what I mean.
Do you think anyone could pull off something similar if they don't have the marital ties to an iconic business like this?
Yeah, I think so. It's all about relationships, and we have a strong one there that's family based, but we've also got other relationships with just other local businesses or establishments. We are a good customer of theirs, and so they would help us out if we needed something. So there's often times where we'll it may not always be Mrs. Wilkes. We'll treat somebody to something else that we're familiar with in Savannah that they're not necessarily going to find on the top 10 list of TripAdvisor, right?
And is this kind of your version of Southern hospitality, a little personalized?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, if you look at Mrs. Wilkes and that dining experience, that's what's great about it. It's been around since 1950, and they haven't changed. They've never paid for one bit of advertising. They're consistently ranked top 1 or 2 restaurants on TripAdvisor, but it legitimately is. It is true Southern hospitality before hospitality was actually a term.
Nicely put.
So,
and you almost turbocharge it with that backdoor move.
Yes.
I will tell people about that for years, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a secret weapon. So to the point where we stopped, advertising it.
Talking about it on podcasts.
Right, but it shows up so frequently in the guest reviews that guests kind of know what they're getting. So it's really great. So and it is simple, right? So sometimes those are the best services you can provide a guest. Find a great partner that does what they do really well, and just make that introduction. And so that's what we've learned.
And there could be no. This doesn't necessarily have to be a profitable or even a transactional kind of relation. You could just refer.
Yes, and that's all. We don't. Most of our upsells or service enhancements, we're not looking at it as a transactional basis. To be honest, the margins on those, if you were taking a commission on a referral or something, are so slim, it's not worth the effort to track them, in our opinion. Right. We feel you hear about the sharing economy, the experience economy. We've done pretty well, I think, because of the karma economy, is what we kind of call it. And, and it's probably similar in other markets, but Savannah especially, for better or worse, it's who you know town. So, treat everyone the right way, and usually it comes back around in a positive way. The flip side is pretty quickly it'll come back in a negative way if you don't. So
let's actually use that as a little teaser for a discussion later on, because I want to go through all the elements of Lucky Savannah. But first, who is this Corey Jones guy? What were you doing before this vacation rental thing? Or were you just born a vacation rental genius?
No.
Baby genius?
I would say not. No, I'd never have property management. I mean, it's the typical career path of a property manager. I had a paper shredding company, and then sold that and got into vacation rentals.
Paper shredding?
Yes. If you want to sound more fancy, you say information destruction.
One of the things very few people know about me, actually, I once held a job at Williams-Sonoma. Familiar with that company?
Yes.
For those who don't know, it's like gourmet food stuffs.
Right.
And one of the policies that they had is that you can always return something and get a new one. There's only one caveat, is that if somebody finds a Williams-Sonoma product, they could theoretically just go and return it, even if they didn't purchase it there. So Williams-Sonoma, and not a whole lot of people know this, must destroy some of the items, such as the crystal vases that have a little fracture in it, or the plates that have a little chip off it. And I was the destruction specialist.
There you go. Yeah.
But you're just shredding paper. Like, what were people using you for? Why don't you just use a paper shredder?
We were very fortunate to get into that business at the right time. This was back when identity theft was really on everyone's mind. So you had a lot of legislation and regulatory environment that forces certain businesses to destroy personal information. So
this was more than just the machine.
Yeah. I mean, so every document, banks, doctors' offices, law firms. It was a good business.
And you sold it.
We did sell it, and then yes, went from the most objective business model with very few moving pieces to probably one of the most subjective business models with a lot of moving pieces.
Thus begins the vacation rental part of your life.
Right, but we loved it. So I mean, it was.
And who's we?
My wife and I. Yeah. So we started with our own personal residence, and that was a bit by mistake as well. So
you have your own private residence. This is here in downtown Savannah.
That's correct.
Do you call it downtown?
Yeah, we call it downtown. Yeah.
And you were leasing it out.
We're leasing it out. We thought we needed more space, so we put it on the market to sell in 2008, and most people know that wasn't the best time to sell a home. And so we didn't want to give it away, so we said, well, let's see if we can just hold on to it and do something later. And so we didn't know what vacation rentals were. This was probably 2008. So we did long-term rental. We signed an annual lease, and we did that for...
With a good tenant?
Yeah, we had 2 good tenants for a couple years, and then we signed up our last tenant, and she was there, and then our rent checks stopped coming, and then we realized that she had... vacated the property and moved back to Germany unexpectedly.
Okay.
But
how many months did it take you to figure that out?
A couple. It doesn't take that long when you say, hey, I should have gotten a check on the first. And so once we finally realized it, we went in the home, and she left some furniture behind, and we thought that was odd. And then the arrangement of the furniture seemed a little bit odd, and then we saw some guest books, and so
books as in
she's
like, hosting people.
Yeah, there were people having a great time in our home and paying her to do so. So she was that was how we learned about vacation rentals, is that one of our long-term tenants was doing it with our property without us knowing.
What was she listing on, like Airbnb, or was this before that?
This was before Airbnb.
So like Craigslist.
A little Craigslist we found, and then VRBO. So
she had a whole VRBO listing.
Yeah, so that was our first experience to VRBO.com, is to see our house listed on it without our permission. So.
Did she get good reviews at least?
No, she had great reviews, and so I track her down, and she's like, oh yeah, you should really try this. Like, it does really well. So,
wait, you actually contacted her about this?
Yeah, finally we got an email address and contacted her, said, hey, just trying to figure out what's going on here. And she said, yeah, I mean, I was renting it. It does really well. You should consider it, Corey. And so
you really owe all of your vacation rental success to this German.
Der, die, das.
Dem.
Yeah, pretty much. That's where it all got started. So we had a decision to make. I told, my wife and I discussed it, and we could move all the furniture out, try to find another long-term tenant, or we could see what she was up to. And so we got a little bit more furniture, finished it out, put up another listing, and went from there. So, immediately it was much more successful, and it was kind of fun to have a small part in someone's, in many cases, first experience in Savannah, right? So as a Savannah, and you have pride in your knowledge of Savannah, and you want to share it and share those experiences. So it was cool to be able to do that and have that outlet.
And then you didn't have like hospitality background, really. You were doing paper.
Right. So, but that's what we learned, is that you don't need, that's what we found is great about the industry. You don't have to, unless you're up at the highest level trying to do something at scale, you don't necessarily need a hospitality background, right? Hospitality is a mindset. It's character. It's something natural. The hospitality educational piece, the service element, that's what you need, the training and the experience that you build on. But it has to start at that base.
So if someone doesn't have the hospitable bone in their body, should they just skip?
I would say for long-term success, you have to have that hospitable bone in your body, because I think that also, if you have that, you tend to look at things on the long term, relationship driven, not just transactional, right? Every transaction or interaction doesn't have to be a zero-sum game or a positive outcome, right? You have to take the long view, and we learned that pretty quickly. We learned in the hospitality, when we got into this, there is a big difference between being right and being effective. And many times
it's almost like a marriage.
That's right. So, there's a lot of times you have to swallow the pride and know that you're right, but but it's more important to be effective.
And this one property, eventually you started managing others?
Yeah, so we had some friends and family that had apartments or homes downtown that had always done long-term rental, and so at this point there was probably under 50 listings in the city on VRBO or elsewhere, and they said, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe we should try converting ours. So we got up to about 12 homes, and then said, hey, there's obviously a need here, or an opportunity. Let's look at doing something more official. So we. I think that's when I found you.
Yeah. Back in what, 2000?
Yeah, 2012 probably.
Something like that. Yeah. Boost occupancy.
That's right.
That's the report, right?
I still have it.
Did you get the $97 version?
I don't remember if I paid for it or not.
Oh, you might have got a bootleg.
Yes, maybe. So
that was my first foray into vacation rental education. Was I had the blog, and I decided to create an ebook called Boost Occupancy, and I decided to sell that, and there was people who were buying it and getting great use out of it.
Right.
And that was a little indicator that maybe I have a future here.
Right.
If no one had bought it, maybe I would have gone into another industry.
Right.
And that was when we started talking, and you started growing from 12 properties to what's now 230.
Yeah. We have some collections. So out of that 230, there are probably about 50 or so that are spread among 3 or 4 collections. So collections, looking from the outside in, a guest would probably associate a collection most closely with a hotel, right? It's a branded product for us. Typically, it's at least 5 what we would call units. So 5 homes or apartments or dwelling units, all in one building, all with similar or exact layouts like you'd see in a hotel, and all with common or matching decor. So it allows us great flexibility because it allows us to position that product, and it still does really, really well in the traditional vacation rental marketplace and on those listing sites. But we can push it and present it to people that mostly would be looking at hotels, and it's a really great value proposition for them. Correct. Yes.
And the 3 collections, do they have names or?
They do, yeah. So we have one called the Grant, one called the Windrose Apartment Hotel.
Is that where we had dinner last night?
We did, yeah. We ate downstairs at the Fat Radish.
Which was insane, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so we've had some really great meetings in the last week. We're going to start getting as close to we're going to be integrating some Fat Radish capabilities to the guest upstairs at Windrose. So similar to
that, Fat Radish capabilities.
Right. So similar to Mrs. Wilkes and our ability to treat guests at Mrs. Wilkes to lunch, we're taking it one step further with the Windrose collection and the restaurant downstairs, where ahead of arrival, you can select some pre-made beverages or food to have in the refrigerator.
And this is like top level food. This team comes from New York or something.
That's right. Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah. So if you're a group of women coming in, you can order our Bloody Mary or mimosas bar.
And what if you're a man?
We do have I think they're calling it Hair of the Dog batch, but yeah, you can order buckets of craft beer
so
brought
cool.
up. So
and so this is one of the collection. The third one was what after Windrose?
Parker's collection,
okay.
Which is really unique. It's 8 rental units above Savannah's, probably the nation's nicest convenience store.
Right, I got to go there before I leave.
Called Parker's. We call it locally here Fancy Parker's. But it's a convenience store in name only. When you walk in, it looks like a small curated, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods that just happens to sell gasoline if you need to fill up your car. And it's open 24/7, and we have 8 units upstairs. I mean, we were lucky; we got the best guest review I think I've ever seen, and so we're building a whole social media and content campaign around it. This guest, we were searching for what is unique about this, and he said, the title of the review was the #1 convenience store hotel in the U.S. So now we have a category that we can say we own.
Your own limited edition category in which you are the only ones. The collections the properties are all within one building, or are there instances in which properties exist on different buildings but are still part of the same collection?
For our collections, they are all in one building.
Okay.
Right.
And so how does that, to me, that's like I'm sitting here in this beautiful Metropolitan property, for instance. This floor reminds me of a boutique hotel. There's a gorgeous seating area. There's a little fireplace like seating area. Your son is sitting on a beautiful couch area over there. How does the whole thing of convergence, the world of hotels sort of starting to look more like vacation rentals starting to behave more like hotels, where do collections fit in that convergence?
For us, they just allow us the greatest flexibility, right? Our collections suit the needs if it's just a couple coming down for a couple nights. They meet the need if it's somebody that needs a place for 3 months, right? That's not typically someone that's going to have their needs best met in a hotel.
Right.
So we're able to offer lodging very similar to a hotel, but also very similar to a longer-term need. So that's really great for our long-term economics and performance. In terms of convergence, I think what we're seeing at all levels is people realizing they need to get out of their silos, right? So
because they were just told to stay in the silo?
Right. I mean, typically that's the evolution and typical phases of business anyway, right? You build up your market share and then you spend a lot of time protecting it, but then you realize, wait, that's not going to work. So then you shift, and sometimes you shift too late, right? We're in a market that is really close knit. So as a market here, we've had success and we've been able to grow because it's not super dog eat dog. Savannah as a destination and in a hospitality industry, I'll sometimes say sometimes we have a healthy chip on our shoulder, right? We want to protect our own as a destination first, and then we'll worry about how we compete against each other. But what we're seeing at every level in this market, as well as just industry-wide, is it's not, hey, you're a hotel, you're a vacation rental. We're all in the lodging space. That's how we try to define it internally within our company. And
is that something that you think would work in an ultra-competitive landscape where it is dog eat dog?
It's hard to say. I mean, it depends on the players and how well they're willing to work together, I guess.
And so does this give you a unique angle on competition? I'm guessing it does because you're doing great.
I think that we have a unique ability to offer what some other property managers don't. We've been open to new opportunities, right? There's a lot of managers that wouldn't go that collections route because it gets too far away from their core vacation rental history, where it's typically you have one homeowner and they own one home, and that's your relationship, right? So we feel like, for example, you said we're sitting in this amazing 5-bedroom home. It allows us to really dig into why a guest is coming and hopefully enhance their stay with stuff they wouldn't have been able to be knowledgeable about anyway. So this home does really well if Savannah's a big wedding destination. So destination weddings is a huge piece of hospitality business in Savannah. So this home sets up very well for a large group to come in that is coming in town for the wedding, but that same wedding has a lot of other guests that are coming in town. Maybe it's the whole groomsman side or the bridesmaid side. We can put them at a collection right down the street, so everyone's all still together. They still have more space available relative to a room block of hotels. So again, we're able to take advantage of all the insights from our guests on why they're coming, to have a better chance at converting, I guess.
This is Sean Miller, the president of Point Central. As a sponsor of the podcast, and also as a person who recently beat Matt in a one-on-one basketball game, we have the opportunity to interview Matt and this season's podcast. Well, we're going to save the full interview for the end of the season. Right now, we're going to share a small tidbit with you. Enjoy. How do I market my business? What's the right way for me to tell my story? And I think I actually saw you give a presentation once about the intricacies of telling your personal story. What are some best practices or thoughts you'd like to share with the listeners around that of figuring out your own story and then the best way to bring that story forward to guests and owners?
First of all, it's being authentic. It's not trying to copy some big hospitality company that you admire. You can take hints from that. But being authentic, sitting down and basically writing out who you are, what makes you different, how you fell into this vacation rental business. A lot of times owners and managers think that that's not professional to share this kind of personal insight, but in fact the opposite is true. Guests are looking for that level of intimacy when they're considering a property to stay at. I'm a huge advocate of having a blog in which you're publishing updates on a regular basis. I'm a huge advocate of having a complete About Us section on your listing sites that gets into details of like, what was the crazy story that got you into this business in the first place? Weaving it into your marketing is a very easy thing to do immediately, but also continuing that storyline. I like to call it the underdog storyline. This person who has somehow achieved this business and throughout various challenges and obstacles, embracing the underdog, sharing some of those vulnerabilities, that actually endears travelers to stay with you. All right, enough interviewing me. If you want to learn more about Point Central, head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB. You can sign up for a free demo, you get free HVAC analytics, and Sean's team takes incredibly good care of people. Now let's get back to the show. What happens when the big, huge dogs of the property management world, the Vacasas of the world, for instance, who just announced, gazillion-dollar funding rounds, how do you compete against them?
That's a great question. A lot of it is just educating that homeowner, right? Because it's not an apples to apples comparison. That's how we compete.
So when we talk about competition, we're not talking about for the traveler as much as for the property
right
under your management fleet.
Correct.
So Vacasa and Lucky Savannah would both theoretically be going after the same individual who owns the metropolitan home, for instance.
That's correct.
But your Lucky Savannah angle here is?
We're local, right? And we could get into how long we've been local, but in terms of boots on the ground, we implement a fair amount of technology. We're very strategic on where we do that. We always make sure that there's a boots on the ground checks and balance, and that's our key initiative. It's funny that within the sharing economy, the big tagline is still live like a local. Right? Like you'll have homeowners that, we want to live like a local. So if that's such a big...
Do you like that or not, that phrase?
I'm torn. I probably overthink some of these things. I like it, but when something gets overused, it's like boutique hotel, right?
Right.
What is boutique anymore?
It has
right?
just become so overused that it means nothing anymore.
But I don't know that I want our guests to live like a local because my everyday life is pretty boring. Like I'm not going to these great restaurants every night, right? So I don't want you to come here and live like I do every day. I want you to visit like a local, right? Which means you still need to come in here and experience all these great things, but do it like you had a local best friend that is going to be able to share some of these things that you're never going to see on TripAdvisor or find online by yourself, right? So visit like a local is how that's the kind of the motto that we embrace.
And that's just not something a company that's headquartered elsewhere or without full focus and on the ground man-woman power could achieve.
Right. So, it's an amazing, contrast that live like a local is so big on the guest side, but yet this homeowner is happy to let somebody manage it that's not local.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
paradox.
So it typically, we've never solicited for a homeowner. We're very fortunate. All of our growth has been incoming referral, word of mouth. We're just, we're responding to incoming traffic. And it's because so normally when we get that call, and if they're saying, well, yeah, we're talking to so-and-so and so-and-so, at this point, we kind of say, well, let me know if you're seriously considering them, because if that tells us it's maybe not a good fit, right? Like, we want those people that get it. It's not, they understand our value proposition, and there's no question in their mind that they should go with us. So.
And is that just a confidence that you've developed?
It's a confidence, but it's been born from the last few years of experience where, we have, as we've grown, we've felt more confident not to simply maybe match a lower management fee from somebody else, because we've seen they'll make that decision and then they'll come back 6 months later.
And it's also probably a time thing, because if you're just getting started, you have 2 properties, you're desperate for more properties, you're more likely in most cases to...
Yeah, on the management side, we quickly learned that we can optimize just about any property. The property is not really the issue. So many people focus on we need great properties, we need good properties.
With features and
stuff.
stuff.
And you do. I mean, it helps, right? But on that decision-making tree, we actually we say, look, we want great owners.
And what's a great owner look like to you?
A great owner is somebody that trusts us, right? So we've never, in 6 years, we've never had to go to the mats in regards to enforcing a key term of our rental agreement, right? So there's a relationship built on trust, and that's what we tell them. Look, here's our management agreement. It gives our guardrails, but at the end of the day, you're still trusting me to manage this property and put people you or I don't know unsupervised. So most of the stuff that's going to happen is going to be outside of these guardrails anyway. You've got to just trust me, right? So are you going to trust me, who I live here and our whole team lives here? Or are you going to trust the person that is in Portland,
right,
or Austin, or wherever it is? So that may be a little bit too direct on which vacation managers I'm preferring to.
I love it. We don't beat around the bush
That's
here.
That's right. So.
Picasa.
Yeah.
Here's the other layer to your business that fascinates me. Everything that you've just described about Lucky Savannah is all like blurring all kinds of conventional lines that people are familiar with. I work in the hotel sector. No. I work in the boutique hotel sector. No. You're just blurring all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the lodging sector, but who knows? Maybe we expand away from lodging. I mean, that's why I let hospitality, right? It's broad enough to encompass anything, because we have great relationships. Again, a key piece of our success, I think, is that the lodging's a part of it. Obviously, that's why they're coming to us.
And it
but
must
if
be
that's
good.
if that's the only thing that they utilize us for, then we've failed to communicate why they should come back the next time.
We got a little 15-minute ride through the no wake zone anyway, so
Okay.
we'll pick up speed. I've got some beers, some canned rosé, and
Corey!
if you guys
Canned rosé.
I mean, it is after 12 on a Friday, so I figure we're all good.
And you're stretching this now even further with this new property on Tybee Island. You invited me out on your Freedom boat.
I did. That's the best type of boat ownership, is one that you don't own.
What's the deal there with Freedom Boat? You pay a monthly fee?
It's Freedom Boat Club. It's actually, I guess they've got locations around the nation. So you pay a monthly fee, and you can just get online and make a reservation for the day that you'd like a boat. They have 6 or 7 different models to choose from.
It's ready for you to go.
It's ready for you to go. It's fueled up. You do what you want to do on the boat, drop it back off. They clean it. They fuel it up. If they make sure that boat always starts.
Which is saying a lot for boat owners.
Right.
And where we go from there?
Yeah, so we got on the boat and we headed out to Tybee Island, which is more affectionately known as Savannah's Beach. It's about 20 miles to the east of downtown Savannah. I think we saw some dolphins on the way, and it's a great way again to let visitors experience Savannah, because if you live in Savannah, for a lot of us, being on the water in some form or fashion is a big part of why we live here. And most visitors don't see that. Their experience is River Street. They see the water there. Maybe they get on the big paddle wheel boat, which is still a good experience. But that's what I mean by, visit like a local, right?
Is this something that guests of Lucky Savannah do? Do they check out the waterways?
Occasionally we will get some guests out on the boats. A lot of times, again, that's a great example of us partnering with a trusted partner that does that for a living.
Okay, so how do you work that deal? What does it look like?
We will either pay for that service for a guest. Like if it's something truly special, we've got a budget line item. It's called guest satisfaction, right? So
like an anniversary or something.
Right, an anniversary. If it's their first time to Savannah, like we want them to see the elements that we think would it's an aha moment, right? Like, oh, well, like for you example, right? You said, well, you had this image of Savannah. It's this old city. You probably knew about the live oaks and the Spanish moss and the squares, but I kind of feel like you're like, wow, I didn't realize that all this was here with the marshes and the water. And
really Tybee is part of the Savannah.
Right. You mean you can go just take a boat to this barrier island that is only accessible by boat and nobody lives on it, and that can be your beach?
You guys gone camping there?
Yeah, camping. It's a little warm right now, but when the weather breaks, we'll go camping over there. So, you can literally say, yeah, I went camping on a deserted island.
And we make it over to Tybee. 45 minutes later, we docked in front of one of the Lucky Savannah properties.
That's right. Yeah.
And we then went to this new acquisition. What the heck?
Yeah, it's a new project we've got out on Tybee, the Royal Palms Motel. So
back to my original question. We got sort of sidetracked. You are blurring all these lines of conventional hospitality under the umbrella that you just call lodging, and now a motel is part of that fleet.
It is. So it allows us to hopefully take what we've learned managing other people's homes and try to take full ownership, be fully accountable to the success or failure of it, and not have to ask permission if we want to do something that others may think is crazy, right? Well, hey, if it doesn't work, that's all on us, but we're going to try it. So.
I want to hear a crazy idea in a moment. But for those who haven't seen it, it's this kind of old school horseshoe-shaped motel with a classic little pool in the middle, a nice big pool actually,
right.
All one story, and a block away from the beach. And what would a crazy feature look like at a classic little motel that's been refurbished?
Yeah, some of the stuff, and this is a riff off of some other existing examples, but I think a good friend told me about a property out in LA that has a popsicle hotline by the pool, right? You pick up the phone and you say, hey, I'd like a popsicle, and they deliver it to you on a silver platter out by the pool. So, it's going to be warm by the pool at the beach, so we may have a popsicle zip line, right? So we're just going to zip line the popsicles from the office upstairs down to the pool. So
naturally, how else would you get them?
That would be silly to do any other way.
I'm just all of a sudden desperately want just a cell phone exclusively for popsicles that can be delivered wherever I am.
Hey, we can work on that.
And maybe even zip-lined. That might be a little complicated logistically.
Right.
But what's the idea behind the motel? It's a currently functioning 22-room operation. It's
a currently functioning operation. We just saw a lot of opportunity. There hasn't been a ton of change out on Tybee. It's a great place. We love it there. We saw an opportunity to bring a little bit of the service level that is considered standard downtown Savannah out to Tybee.
And that which has made Lucky Savannah
right. So, Tybee is beloved for its relaxed atmosphere. It's actually referred to as living on Tybee time, right? 15 minutes late is actually on time or early out there. But what we see on the service side sometimes is that living on Tybee time actually bleeds into the level of service that you can get. So we feel like there's some demand, unmet demand for an elevated guest experience, and that property just presented itself as the perfect canvas to do that.
What is the difference between a motel and a hotel, other than one ladder?
Yeah, I think technically a motel, you access your room from an exterior door, and a hotel typically has hallways and all the rooms.
Okay.
All the rooms would open up into a common corridor.
And I think also, I don't know if it's a stigma, but when I hear motel, I think less expensive, certainly more affordable.
Correct. Right.
Is that a thing too?
Yeah, I think most people would consider a motel probably less amenity rich than a hotel for sure. And we get insight from people that we trust their opinion that are in this space and have been doing it for a long time. And one of them raised a question is, hey, when you reposition this, are you sure that you want to keep it named a motel, right? Should you call it an inn to get away from that stigma? And we thought about it, and we wanted to honor the original name that's been there since the 1960s. But if we call it an inn, then we're competing against a bigger pool, and it's harder to distinguish ourselves. It's probably easier for us if we're successful, which we plan to be. We want to be the driving force that actually changes that stigma of motel, right? It's easier to own that category and help elevate it than just be another pretty decent inn.
I love this. Okay, so the motel, there are certain aspects that you want to preserve. For instance, the letter M. And I'm guessing the layout that just has this great classic Americana feel.
Correct.
But then there's other things that you want to upgrade.
Right.
You told me that you recently, and when you took over the hotel, you brought in some new, shall we say, technology?
We did give them their first computer. So that was a big moment for us.
What were they using?
Every month, and we still kept a couple of them, and they worked. But yeah, every month they would go get a big piece of poster board and a ruler and draw the grid lines, and that was their reservation grid. And if someone canceled, they would do it in pencil so that they could erase it and make the change on the grid. But it worked. They never had a double booking. They knew who was coming in each room.
Never a tech glitch.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless they ran out of lead in the pencil. But
And what happened when faced with this change in the business process? They're going to have to use a computer now. Was it embraced or was it rejected?
It had some hesitancy in the beginning, but then they quickly realized, wow, this saves me a lot of time. Right. So it's been embraced now because, look, they had a phone, but they had no answering machine, no voicemail. So we actually gave them a voicemail as well. So and we made the website actually able to be bookable online. So
wow.
These are just basic elements that we implemented, and the staff that we were able to fortunately retain. They've bought into it. They can kind of see what's coming. And so that's exciting because they understand that there could be something better out here.
And what is the mix here? What's the magic blend of using this technology, using all the tools at our disposal? I see you trying out all the different property management softwares. You're constantly looking to push the boundaries on the tech side, but you also have not forgotten these little touches, like in the case of the motel, the actual old school little key,
right.
What is the blend, or is there a definitive blend?
I think the blend is, we were able to grow, speaking on the vacation rental side, we were able to grow very quickly and steadily because we embraced technology, keyless locks and remote controlled thermostats and a great property management software, et cetera. So we use technology where it makes sense. My team will often tell me and kid me that we use too much technology. Like they'll say that there's not a software that you'll say no to, Corey. Or, they've made the joke like, hey, that toilet's messed up. You should just get some software for that. But so we test it. You're
going to start hearing from all kinds of vendors in our industry.
Right.
Like, we got the first toilet app.
Right. So but so the blend and the balance and what we coach our staff on is because there are some instances where a guest will have a need that they can resolve remotely, or resolve through technology or just a quick text back and forth. And so we have to coach them and say, hey, I get it. You did the right thing. Like, you got it resolved, but you didn't do anything distinguished or differentiated that other manager that's doing the same thing from Portland or Austin couldn't do, right? So that's our differentiating factor is you have all that technology, but don't be afraid to go back old school and walk the one block and actually let them in or take them the 2 extra towels, right? Personally, right? Those are the things that we see pop up in reviews that you can't buy. We had the hair dryer was missing, but gosh, they brought one over in 5 minutes, right? And it was the same person that I talked to on the phone. That never happens. Right. Tell me an instance in Vacation Rental Management now where the person you call is actually,
right.
In terms of professional property management.
Exactly.
Because everyone's now has all these layers, right?
Right.
So.
And also, I think just you say professional. I know plenty of single property owners who are highly professional. I mean, they run a tip-top ship, but for them it's easier to go and manually open every door.
Right. Well, and that's what we're trying to do a better job of it, is really reinforce to our team that yes, you all have different roles, right? You're in reservations, you're in guest services, you're in maintenance, but we're all still hosts, right? 90% of the things that you're made aware of, you actually have the power and the ability to resolve all yourself, right? So you go do it. I'm not going to get mad at you. Actually, I think that's great, right? And I know it means it's meaningful for that guest. So how do we, as a company that is a little bit more at scale, right? How do we still do that personal touch that an individual homeowner would do? Because I know that it's meaningful to a guest when that happens, right? So how do we somewhat...
Is that just like a training thing? Is that repetition? Is it having big words in the office written in big letters?
Yeah, we have none of that, and so that's some of the stuff that we're working through. Is that we've kind of reached a good point here where, to a certain extent, we're hopefully self-sustaining, and so that's why I'm kind of rededicating myself to, okay, we actually probably need some standard operating procedures for this. We probably need some training. I actually probably need to communicate more clearly what I want to accomplish at that broader level. So a lot of that's on my shoulders, and so I'm trying to correct those wrongs.
Well,
for the
I
next
will give
phase.
shout out to the team members that I have met, Jamila when we got checked in, Cindy throughout the entire process. They are pretty spectacular, just FYI.
Yeah,
they're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And you're doing a great job of training them or something. Okay, so last big layer to your work, in my opinion, is where Lucky Savannah, as a small business, fits into the fabric of the local society. Because most vacation rental professionals eventually struggle to have a voice at the table when, for instance, laws are being made or when stakeholders are united about a town. You've done a really interesting thing, I think, in being baked into that. Is it the Savannah Tourism Board? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to serve on Visit Savannah, which is our destination marketing organization, and then more broadly, we've got some great relationships and with the hospitality industry in general from the regulatory environment.
And what is your big takeaway there? Advice for others who are thinking about being more involved in their local communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think most property managers that are focused solely on one or two markets, they're already involved in that community, right? And so it's making sure that your partner's not in your industry, so those that you may be competing with or the neighbors and the residents, they understand that they may not really fully embrace what you're doing. They may have differing opinions on it. But as long as you approach them
proactively,
in a respectful manner, right? It does not need to be just mutual respect, right? So we understand we don't believe vacation rentals are as bad as some neighbors may say, but we understand we understand how they could come to that conclusion, right? But again, we're a member of the community. Most of your other managers are going to be members of the community, so we approach it that way. I have to see these neighbors at church or at the ball field or at the grocery store, right? That comes into play on how we approach certain situations.
And by the way, another thing that a property management company that's not based there can do, really stand for.
Yeah, I mean, their decision-making criteria is completely different, right? It is all transactional, right? If you have no skin in the game, your decisions are solely, they're much simpler, right? Doesn't mean that they're the right decisions to make, but we have 6 or 7 more layers to think through of, okay, if we do this, this is what's going to happen 6 months from now. And so.
And one of the principles, the new principles of VRMB is called proximity, getting close to our problems in order to solve them.
The closer we can get to our constituents or our clients, the better we can understand them. And the opposite is true as well. If there's too much space in between there, we lose pretty much everything.
It sounds to me like you've basically pulled a proximity play, gotten as close to the other neighbors, the other stakeholders, the other business owners, the tourism folks, earned yourself a part of that conversation. And at least now you're not going to be blindsided or totally screwed with just because you've put in the legwork.
I think that's a great way to put it. Like, we may still face adverse regulatory actions that we would have to decide how we react to, right? But I think for the most part, I don't think that we would be completely surprised, which was important. I mean, we made a proactive effort, and that's another thing. You take it for granted now, but there still are a lot of other municipalities that have not addressed or even formally recognized with legislation or ordinances this use. When we realized that we were going to start to make a living doing this, and this is going to be my full-time job, we proactively came to the local city leaders and said, look, like, this is a use that's going on. We actually need to define it in the city code, right? So we got ahead of the game, and we were able to have a seat at the table and help craft what we felt like was a fairly balanced ordinance, right? And so we started early. We didn't want to be blindsided then. We knew that by doing this, we weren't going to get everything that we asked, but at least we'd have a mediated outcome and know where we're going, right? I mean, it scares me when you see these people and managers even that have really grown really large businesses in markets that don't formally recognize it.
Right. It must be incredibly stressful and anxiety, like.
I couldn't. I mean, I come from paper shredding, right? So that's a very accretive business, right?
Accretive?
Meaning your actions, your success, if you're successful, build upon. It's a snowball effect,
oh, cool.
right?
I never heard that word. I like it.
Yeah, it's a fancy word for snowball effect. And so it was kind of, that would stress me out.
It's the opposite
crazy,
of accretive.
right? Like, it could all go away,
Poof.
Right. So, that's how we've approached it here.
And at the very least, it allows you to get a return on your investment, whether it's work or dollars. At the end of the day, if there is the right infrastructure in place, or at the very least, if you are part of the conversation, it compounds as opposed to.
That's right. Yep. Exactly.
Being toast. What do you think is the biggest thing in our industry that people don't know that's coming, and that they should get on right now? Is there anything that is about to surprise folks? Or is it a slow and steady?
Probably, but it's going to surprise me too.
Okay,
fair enough. And then so our only, what we focus on is, okay, if it's going to surprise everybody, we're going to be as nimble and react as best or better than most, right? So
good attitude. And does that just mean staying totally up to date on everything and pushing yourselves and improving and staying honest?
For us, and I don't know how strategic it is or deliberate, but inherently, my risk management strategy is to have as many different outs, as I'll call them, right? I want to be able to be nimble, right? If this avenue closes, well, then I've got 2 others that we can pivot to, because that's how we approach it. Like, we've got a good full-time staff now, so I feel obligated to them to try to stay ahead of the trends and especially the downside things that potentially could happen. Because if, let's say that we did get regulated out, right? What are our core strengths that we're applying to lodging now, but that we could apply elsewhere, right? So that's kind of where we are in our next phase of business. This is great and it's here now, but what if it's not, right? What do we need to kind of start looking at to leverage our core strengths, right?
Love it. We've covered some really deep, incredible topics over the course of the last 50 minutes. I'd just like to close by thanking you for not only sharing this incredible town and meeting your family and seeing you in your element, but also for your industry leadership. This is really progressive stuff, although what I think makes it cool is that it's not really rocket science. You're kind of sticking to a really core, good set of basics that anyone can do if they really wanted to, right? Or is that oversimplifying things?
No, I mean, I
thank
think
you.
I think that anyone could do it, and we are trying, and sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not, but it's having that mindset. I think it came up yesterday, right? It's one thing to know that you're at the top of your game relative to your peers and your competitors, but for us, we have a healthy dose of, well, that's not good enough. I want to compete against the best I can do, right? Or we can do as a company, and that's kind of what drives us. So,
Never knew Southern hospitality would be so progressive.
Well, we love the opportunity of having you here. We hope you come back, and we'll just continue to work on the Southern drawl.
We got to continue to work on the Southern drawl, y'all.
Yeah.
Have a great afternoon, my friend, and thank you for everything once more.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, folks. Thanks for listening. I just wanted to remind everyone that this episode was brought to you by Point Central, the home automation experts of our industry. You can head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB, fill out the form, and take a free demo. You'll also get free HVAC analytics, and I can promise you that Sean's team will take great care.